I'll never forget the way the steak sizzled on the plate when she said it. It was a Friday night, just the two of us, Rachel and me, seated across from each other at a dimly lit restaurant she'd chosen, one that felt a little too upscale for our usual date nights. She was glowing in a silk blouse that clung to her in all the right ways, hair curled, lips glossed. God, she looked stunning. I'd even thought, naively, that we might end the night tangled together in bed. She took a sip of her Malbec, her eyes locking with mine as if she were about to drop some exciting news about a promotion or a surprise weekend getaway. Then came the bomb. I've been thinking, she said, drawing a finger around the rim of her glass, about us. About trust, maturity, and liberation. I furrowed my brow. Liberation? Her eyes flicked down to her plate for a split second before meeting mine again. I want to open the marriage, Ethan. Just like that. No preamble. No warning. She said it with the same calm she used when telling me we were out of milk. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. The word open echoed in my head like a cracked bell. I set my fork down slowly. What are you talking about? I think it would be freeing, she said, the corners of her mouth turning upward like she was selling me a spa weekend. We've been together for over a decade. We trust each other. We're solid. And maybe, just maybe, exploring something new could bring us even closer. Her voice was soft, persuasive, like silk sliding over skin. She reached across the table and touched my hand. That familiar, perfect touch that had once made me feel chosen, adored. Now it felt like a manipulation. You want to sleep with other people, I said, flatly. I want us both to have the option, she replied. It's not just about sex, Ethan. It's about honesty. About not pretending we're immune to attraction. About not being afraid of desire. Desire. I glanced down at her low-cut blouse, at the way the candlelight shimmered against her collarbone. I was attracted to her. I still desired her. But suddenly, that word tasted like betrayal in my mouth. I stared into my glass, watching the wine swirl like blood in water. My pride rose first, rage simmering under the surface. But beneath that? Fear. Fear that saying no meant losing her entirely. Fear that she'd already mentally walked out the door and this was just her way of leaving with my permission. So I nodded. One small, prideful, terrified nod. She smiled like I'd just agreed to try a new yoga class. We'll set ground rules, she said, her hand tightening slightly around mine. Total transparency. No lies. No emotional entanglements. Just fun. Fun. I barely tasted the rest of my food. She talked about boundaries and scheduling, like we were planning a vacation instead of detonating a marriage. She assured me that I could say no at any time, that we were in this together. But the way she spoke, it was clear she'd already made up her mind. In the car ride home, she hummed along to the music, tapping her fingers against the steering wheel, her body language loose and triumphant. I sat stiff beside her, staring out the window, wondering when the shift had happened, when my wife had become someone I didn't recognize. That night, we lay in bed back to back. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't sleep at all. I kept thinking about the words she'd used: trust, maturity, liberation. They felt like a mask over something darker, something selfish, maybe even cruel. But I told myself I could handle it. I told myself I wouldn't let her be the only one with options. I had no idea what I was setting in motion. Not yet. Rachel stood in front of the mirror like she was 25 again, inspecting herself from every angle. The tight black dress she'd chosen clung to her like a second skin, hugging her curves with a confidence I hadn't seen in years. Her heels were higher than usual, her perfume stronger, more provocative. Her hair fell in cascading waves down her shoulders, and her lipstick was a shade darker than I remembered her ever wearing for me. "This too much?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder. I didn't answer right away. I was still trying to process the sight of her, trying to file away the way my stomach twisted at the thought of another man seeing her like this, touching her like this. My wife, deliberately dressing for seduction, just not for me. "You look great," I said finally, flatly. She smiled, almost shyly, and turned back to the mirror. "Thanks." I sat on the edge of the bed, already nursing my first glass of whiskey. I'd poured it before she even started her makeup. Pride was still telling me to play it cool, to act like this didn't bother me. But every click of her heels across the hardwood floor sent a spike of fury through my chest. "I'll be back late," she said casually, slipping her clutch under her arm. "Don't wait up." I forced a nod, watching her head for the door. She paused just before leaving and looked back at me. For a split second, her face softened. "We're still okay, right?" I wanted to scream no, to grab her by the shoulders and beg her to stay. But instead, I swallowed my pride again. Yeah, we're okay. And just like that, she was gone. I sat in the silence she left behind, the door clicking shut with terrifying finality. The house felt colder without her in it. Or maybe it was just me. Maybe it was the realization that I had agreed to this. I'd let her walk out that door dressed for someone else. I gave her permission to trade our vows for a one-night thrill. I finished my drink and poured another. The whiskey burned going down, but it wasn't enough. I turned on the TV, mindlessly flipping through channels, trying to pretend I was fine, that I was okay being the man left behind while his wife sought liberation between someone else's sheets. The first hour passed slowly. Every car that passed the house made my stomach clench. I kept imagining him, some faceless, smooth-talking prick, sliding his hand along Rachel's thigh, unzipping that damn dress, kissing her the way I used to when we couldn't keep our hands off each other. I poured a third drink. By the second hour, anger had settled in like an unwanted guest. I thought about texting her, just to say something, anything. But what would I say? Hope he fucks you better than I did. Instead, I scrolled through old photos of us, smiling on a beach in Cabo, holding hands at a Christmas party, Rachel laughing in the passenger seat on one of our random weekend drives. She looked happy in all of them. But then again, so did I. Around 10 p.m., there was a knock at the door. I froze. It couldn't be Rachel. She'd barely been gone 3 hours. Maybe she forgot something? Maybe. The knock came again. I stood, the glass slipping from my hand and hitting the floor with a soft thud. As I approached the door, my pulse raced. I opened it slowly, expecting anything but what I saw. Samantha, Rachel's best friend. She stood there in jeans and a black tank top, her dark hair tied up in a loose bun. Even dressed casually, she radiated that effortless kind of beauty, sultry, confident, dangerous. "Hey," she said, her voice low. "Can I come in?" I blinked. Yeah? Sure." She stepped past me, her perfume leaving a trail of vanilla and spice. She glanced around the living room like she hadn't been here a dozen times before. "Sorry to just show up," she said, sitting down on the couch. "I saw something tonight I thought you should know about." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She pulled out her phone and tapped it. "I was on this dating app. You know, just curious. And guess who I stumbled on?" She turned the screen toward me. It was Rachel, smiling in that same damn dress she'd just walked out in. The profile was bold, flirty, looking for excitement, looking for permission to be bad. My mouth went dry. "She's not just seeing someone," Samantha said, voice tinged with disdain. "She's shopping." I sat down heavily beside her, my head spinning. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I care about you, Ethan," she said simply. "I've known Rachel for years, but this isn't just about exploring. She's checked out." We sat in silence for a beat. Then she put her hand on mine. Just a light touch, but warm and intentional. Her eyes lingered on mine a second too long, and something inside me cracked. Not enough to break, but enough to bend. Samantha didn't move her hand. Not right away. Her fingers lingered against mine with a heat I hadn't felt in weeks. No, months. The kind that didn't come from affection, but intention. It wasn't comfort. It wasn't sympathy. It was the start of something. I should have pulled away. Instead, I looked at her. Really looked. Her lips were parted slightly, the tip of her tongue barely visible. Her chest rose and fell with quiet tension. There was something charged between us, undeniable, electric, and new. The kind of thing that shouldn't exist between a man and his wife's best friend. But Rachel had rewritten the rules. Samantha glanced down at our hands, her voice just above a whisper. "Sorry, I shouldn't have." "No," I said too quickly. "It's okay." The corner of her mouth twitched, just barely. "You don't seem okay." I laughed once, bitterly. "Would you be?" She got dressed up for another man, and I just sat here like an idiot. "You're not an idiot." She shifted a little closer, her thigh brushing against mine. "You're a man who still believes in loyalty. That's rare now." There was a pause. The air between us thickened. "I thought you and Rachel were solid," she added. "She used to talk about you like you were some golden standard." I stared into my glass. "Yeah, well, the gold's tarnished, I guess." Samantha leaned in a bit more, and when she spoke next, her voice was velvet. "Can I ask you something?" "Shoot. If the roles were reversed. If you had the chance to be with someone else, no strings, no guilt, would you?" My throat tightened. I looked at her. At the curve of her jaw, the way her tank top dipped just low enough to tease the swell of her breasts. I remembered nights when Rachel was out and Samantha stayed over after wine and movies. How she always seemed to sit just a little too close. How she'd glance at me when Rachel wasn't looking. How I told myself it was nothing. Was it? I hesitated. I don't know. She smiled softly. Honest. That's something. There was another silence, heavier this time. She broke it with a small laugh. God, this is wrong, isn't it? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Every cell in my body was confused, angry, aroused, ashamed, curious. She was Rachel's best friend. But she was here. And Rachel. Rachel was out there, probably in someone else's bed. Samantha stood suddenly. I should go. I followed her to the door, unsure of what to say. But just as she stepped onto the porch, she turned. You don't deserve this, Ethan, she said. And if she doesn't see that, someone else will. Her words echoed after she left, trailing behind the click of her heels. I stood in the open doorway for a long time, staring into the darkness, heart pounding like I'd just escaped something dangerous or missed a chance at it. Back inside, the house felt different. Still quiet, still cold. But now it carried the trace of something I hadn't expected. Temptation. I poured another drink, but it didn't burn the same way. I sat back down on the couch where Samantha had just been. Her perfume still lingered, sweet, subtle, something floral and earthy. I leaned into it without meaning to, letting it fill my lungs. That scent clung to me long after I finally fell asleep on the couch, still fully dressed. When I woke the next morning, Rachel was already home. She stood in the kitchen, humming, wearing a robe and pouring coffee like nothing had happened, like nothing had changed. Hey, she said brightly. You want breakfast? I blinked at her, disoriented. You're home. Of course. Got in late. She didn't offer details. Didn't ask how my night was. She just sipped her coffee, eyes glancing at the clock. I've got a yoga class at 10, so I can't stay long. That was it. No guilt. No remorse. No curiosity. She was already living in this new world, and I was barely learning how to breathe in it. As she walked past me, I caught another faint scent, his cologne. Sharp. Musky. Not mine. And all I could think was, Samantha noticed. She came over. She cared. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who I wanted in my bed anymore. It started with a text. Hey. Just checking in. How are you feeling today? Samantha sent it that afternoon. Rachel was still out, brunch with friends, though I didn't ask for names. I stared at the message longer than I should have before replying with a simple, not great, but thanks for asking. A minute later, the 3 dots bubbled on the screen. You want company tonight? No pressure. Just wine and something stupid on Netflix. My thumb hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to say no, wanted to do the mature thing. But the other part, the one still raw, still aching, still furious, wanted the distraction. Yeah, that actually sounds perfect. She arrived a little after 7, this time in a soft, off-the-shoulder sweater that did things to my self-control. She carried 2 bottles of wine and a brown bag with some fancy cheese and crackers she said she'd picked up from a market near her place. Classy snacks for a not-so-classy situation, she joked, kicking off her shoes at the door. We didn't sit next to each other right away. She curled up on the opposite end of the couch while I sat at the far side, a safe gulf of cushions between us. But the wine flowed easily, and with it, our conversation. We talked about anything but Rachel. About music, movies, that time in college when Samantha got drunk and thought she could pole dance using a stop sign. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. It felt good, dangerously good. By the 3rd glass of wine, the space between us had shrunk. She moved closer, her thigh brushing mine. A casual shift. Innocent enough. Except it wasn't. Is this okay? She asked, voice low. I nodded. We sat like that for a while, close but not touching more than that. The air grew thick again, same as it had during her surprise visit. But this time, it was slower, more deliberate. She turned toward me, legs folded beneath her, and leaned in slightly. Can I ask you something weird? Shoot. Did you and Rachel still, sleep together? Before this all started. Her question caught me off guard. I looked away, chewing on the answer. Not much, I admitted. Once every few weeks. Sometimes less. She was always tired, or stressed, or distant. Samantha studied me for a moment. I'm sorry. That's not how it should be. There was something burning behind her eyes. Something protective. Something fierce. And then she said it. If you were mine, I wouldn't be able to keep my hands off you. My breath hitched. Sam. She reached for my hand again, just like the night before. But this time, it wasn't a fleeting touch. She threaded her fingers through mine, her thumb lightly stroking the back of my hand. "I'm not trying to complicate your life," she said softly, "but I'm not going to pretend I haven't thought about this. About you." My heart pounded in my ears. I knew I should have stopped her. I knew this was walking a razor-thin line, but Rachel had blurred the lines when she left in that dress. She made the rules. I was just surviving them. "Samantha." She leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to stop her. I didn't. Our lips didn't meet. Not yet. But our foreheads touched, breath mingling, eyes locked. She was so close I could feel the warmth of her skin, the slight tremble in her hands. My hand drifted to her thigh, just above the knee, where the hem of her sweater had ridden up. Her skin was smooth, electric. She closed her eyes, exhaled. "If you tell me to go, I will." I didn't. But I didn't move further either. After a long moment, she pulled back just slightly, enough to meet my gaze. "Not yet," I whispered. "I can't, not yet." Her expression didn't change. She nodded, brushing her thumb across my cheek. "Okay." We sat like that a bit longer, close enough to kiss, but holding back. Eventually, she stood and kissed my temple. "Text me if you want to talk tomorrow." And just like that, she left again. But something had changed. The boundary hadn't just shifted. It had disappeared. I didn't sleep much that night. The ghost of Samantha's breath still lingered on my cheek. I kept replaying the moment when her lips nearly touched mine, when her hand rested on my thigh like it belonged there. I told myself we hadn't done anything technically wrong. But the line, whatever was left of it, was now faint and broken, like a sidewalk cracked from years of pressure. Rachel came home around 2 a.m., quietly, heels in hand. I stayed in the guest room. She didn't ask why. In the days that followed, Samantha and I texted constantly. Not always flirty, at first. She'd send me a meme. I'd send her a joke. Then came the late-night texts. The ones where she'd admit she couldn't stop thinking about that almost kiss. Where I confessed I'd replayed it too many times to count. The messages grew longer. More charged. "I dreamed about you last night." What kind of dream? The kind I shouldn't be telling you about if we're still pretending we're just friends. Each message tightened the coil of desire inside me. Rachel didn't notice. Or she didn't care. She was always out, always glowing, always touched by a different kind of energy, one I hadn't seen in her in years. It was the thrill of being desired, pursued. She was addicted to it. Meanwhile, I was drowning in restraint. So when Samantha invited herself over again the following Friday with wine, again, I didn't hesitate. "I got the one you liked last time," she said, holding up the bottle with a smirk. Figured I'd try to bribe my way into another movie night. "You never have to bribe me," I said, stepping aside to let her in. This time, she didn't sit on the opposite end of the couch. She plopped down beside me, knees brushing mine, as if we'd been doing this for years. And maybe emotionally, we had. We drank slowly, talked even slower. The TV was on, but neither of us watched it. Somewhere around glass 2, she turned to me. "I keep thinking about that night," she said. "About how close we were." I nodded, my throat tight. "Me too. I wanted to kiss you," she admitted. "Still do." The air between us turned electric again. Her hand found mine, this time with certainty. She leaned in, and this time, I didn't stop her. Her lips were soft, searching, hungry, but not rushed. I kissed her back. Slowly, deeply, like I'd been starving, and she was the first taste of air. Her hand slid up my chest, under my shirt, fingertips grazing skin that hadn't been touched with tenderness in what felt like years. My hands found her waist, then her back, pulling her closer until our bodies molded together. We didn't speak, just breathed each other in. The kiss deepened, tongues teasing, teeth grazing. Her leg slipped over mine, straddling me on the couch, pressing herself against me with a heat that made my head spin. Her hips rolled once, twice, against my growing hardness. My hands found the soft curve of her thighs under that dangerously short dress she'd worn, just because. She moaned softly into my mouth. It was dangerous. It was wrong. It was perfect. I broke the kiss first, my breath ragged. "Sam, we should stop." She stayed close, forehead resting against mine. "I know." Her hand brushed along my jaw. "But I don't want to." Neither did I. But something inside me, something stubborn and old-fashioned and still clinging to what little honor I had left, held the line. I helped her back into her seat. She didn't resist. Her chest rose and fell with the same tension I felt. "Next time," she whispered. I didn't answer. She left not long after, her lipstick smudged, her hair tousled. I watched her go, the scent of her skin still on my shirt, my hands still tingling from where they'd gripped her thighs. I had crossed the first line, and I knew the next one would be even easier to erase. She said it like she was reading off a grocery list. I slept with someone new last night. Rachel dropped that line over coffee like it was just another mundane detail in our cohabiting lives. Her tone was flat, void of shame or emotion, as if informing me the dry cleaner lost a shirt or she'd overcooked the chicken. I didn't even look up from my plate at first. I kept cutting into my eggs, mechanically, feeling the trimmer in my hands as I tried to breathe through the heat crawling up my neck. Just one person? I asked, voice deadpan. I hated how calm I sounded. Her head tilted. Well, technically, two. Not at the same time. She said it like that would somehow soften the blow, as if technically made the betrayal easier to digest. She took a sip of her coffee, legs crossed neatly under the table, not even flinching. Were you planning to tell me eventually? I said. Or was this just performance art? She set the mug down, sighed. Ethan, we agreed to this. You said you were okay. Did I? Or did I just nod because I didn't want to lose you? She didn't answer. Silence stretched between us like a rubber band ready to snap. Then she added, it's not personal. It's just part of the arrangement. Not personal. As if sex had somehow been sterilized and sorted neatly into this imaginary box labeled growth. I shoved my plate away and stood. You're unbelievable. Oh, come on, she said, suddenly defensive. Don't act like you're some martyr. You agreed. You said we were mature enough for this. Mature enough, I repeated bitterly. That's rich. Mature people don't tear down their marriages because they're bored. Her eyes narrowed. So now I'm the villain? What exactly have you been doing while I'm out? The words hung in the air between us. Samantha flashed across my mind. The kiss. Her legs around me. Her breath in my ear. The way I wanted her more than I'd wanted Rachel in years. But that wasn't the point. This isn't about what I've done, I said. This is about the way you dropped that news like it didn't matter. Like I'm just some roommate who should be happy for you. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. No, I snapped. I'm being honest. Something you should try sometime. She stood too, now suddenly indignant. Don't pretend you're innocent. I've seen the way Samantha looks at you. You think I don't notice how often she checks in, how she suddenly cares so much about your well-being. I stared at her, stunned. So you have noticed, I said slowly. She went quiet for a moment, arms crossed, chin lifted. I'm not stupid. No, Rachel, you're not. But you're also not blameless. She huffed. You're twisting everything. This was supposed to be a journey. Something shared. I was upfront. I was honest. You're the one who's sitting in judgment while probably planning your next text to my best friend. The fury inside me crested. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You say this was about honesty, about connection, about trust. But you know what it really is, Rachel? She blinked. It's about power. You wanted permission to cheat without the guilt. You wanted to rewrite the rules so you could feel sexy and free and wanted, without giving a damn about what it does to me. Her face hardened. That's not true. It's exactly true, I said. You just didn't think I'd play the game too. Her mouth parted slightly. A flicker of something in her eyes, maybe doubt, maybe guilt. But it passed quickly. She reached for her purse. I've got errands. Of course she did. She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence that followed was deafening. I stood in our kitchen, breathing hard, every muscle coiled like a spring. She wanted freedom. She got it. But she wasn't prepared for what I'd do with mine. The next time Samantha came over, it wasn't for wine. It wasn't for distractions or movies or late-night confessions wrapped in silk tones. It was something heavier. I could see it the moment I opened the door. She stood there, hair down, hoodie zipped halfway, eyes stormy and restless. Can I come in? She asked, her voice tight. Yeah, of course. She moved past me quickly, pacing the living room like a storm cloud trapped indoors. I closed the door and leaned against it, watching her move. Finally, she stopped in the center of the room and turned. I need to tell you something, she said. My stomach tightened. She closed the distance between us in 3 long strides and grabbed my hands like she was anchoring herself. Her eyes searched mine with a kind of desperation I hadn't seen before, not from her. I've had feelings for you, she said. For years, Ethan. The words hit like a jolt. What? She nodded. Since before Rachel ever talked about opening the marriage. Since before she started pulling away. Hell, maybe even since we all went to that stupid cabin 3 summers ago. I kept telling myself it was wrong, that it was just a crush. But it wasn't. She swallowed hard. I didn't say anything because she was my best friend, and you were hers. And I thought you loved her the way a man is supposed to love his wife. I didn't speak. I couldn't. The air felt thinner, sharper. I hated watching her treat you like an afterthought, Samantha continued. I wanted to say something so many times, but I stayed quiet. Out of loyalty. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. But now? Now she's out there screwing strangers like it's a sport. She chose this. She invited this. I reached for her without thinking. Her lips were on mine before I could second-guess it. This time, there was no pause. No hesitation. No pulling back. We didn't kiss like friends who'd crossed a line. We kissed like people who'd been holding back a dam broke wide open. Her mouth was fire and soft urgency, her body melting into mine as I pushed her gently against the wall. She moaned softly, gripping the hem of my shirt and tugging upward. I let her pull it over my head, her fingers grazing my skin like she'd been dying to touch it. I kissed along her jaw, down her neck, tasting the salt and heat of her skin. She arched into me, her hoodie falling away as I pressed kisses to her collarbone. Are you sure? I asked, breathless against her throat. She nodded, her hand sliding down to my belt. Ethan, I've never been more sure of anything. I carried her to the couch. We undressed each other in between kisses, laughter, and gasps, each layer pulled away like years of silence finally shedding. Her skin was warm, her body strong and soft in all the places I'd imagined too many times. When I entered her, she wrapped her legs around me and whispered my name like it meant something, like it mattered. We moved together slowly at first, exploring, learning, then faster, hungrier. Everything I hadn't felt with Rachel in years came rushing back with Samantha. Desire, connection, joy. It wasn't just sex. It was discovery. And when we collapsed into each other after, tangled and panting and spent, she held my face in her hands. I didn't just do this to hurt Rachel, she said. I did this because I want you. I looked into her eyes, searching for guilt. There was none. Only clarity. And maybe love. It was early morning when it happened. Too early for visitors, and definitely too early for the woman I had just made love to still be half naked in my bed. But fate doesn't care about timing. The first sound was the click of the front door unlocking. The second was Rachel's voice, casual and unaware. Ethan? You here? Samantha and I froze. She was on her stomach, wrapped in the sheet, her hair a gorgeous mess across my pillow. I was still beside her, body warm and sore in all the right ways, her scent clinging to my skin. My blood turned ice. She's not supposed to be back until tonight, I whispered. Samantha's eyes widened. What do we do? Too late. Rachel's heels clicked across the hardwood, approaching fast. I sprang out of bed, grabbing my jeans from the floor as Samantha scrambled to gather her clothes. We were nearly decent when Rachel stepped into the living room and stopped cold. Her eyes locked onto the coffee table. I followed her gaze. There it was. A single, unmistakable gold hoop earring. Samantha's. She stared at it like it was a dead animal, then slowly lifted her eyes to meet mine. I forgot something, she said, voice like a blade. Came back to grab it before yoga. Didn't think I'd walk in on a porno set. I didn't flinch. I didn't stammer. I just looked at her and said, You opened the door. Her face contorted. Excuse me. You wanted freedom, Rachel, I said, stepping closer. You wanted to feel alive, to liberate yourself. So I did too. Samantha emerged from the hallway then, her hair still damp from the shower, wearing one of my old shirts. Her posture was calm, almost regal, but her face was unreadable. Rachel's eyes darted to her. You have got to be kidding me. Nope, I said flatly. Not even a little. Samantha stood tall. I didn't plan this, Rachel. But I also didn't stop it. You don't get to be shocked after rewriting the rules. Rachel scoffed, laughing bitterly. I trusted you. Both of you. Samantha's expression hardened. Trusted us? You mean after you turned marriage into a playground and told Ethan to just deal with it? I was honest with him. Rachel snapped. You were supposed to be my friend. And you were supposed to be his wife, Samantha shot back. The room turned electric. I stood between them, heart pounding. Enough. They both turned to me. I'm not going to sit here and referee. Rachel, you asked for this. You created the rules. I just stopped being the guy who waited for permission to feel human. Rachel's mouth worked soundlessly for a moment. Then she let out a shaky laugh and shook her head. This is unreal, she whispered. You think this is some victory? No, I said. It's a reality check. Her eyes narrowed. You think she loves you? That she's some prize? I stepped closer, calmly. I think she sees me. That's more than you've done in a long time. Rachel's face fell. Just for a second. Just long enough to let the truth hit. She turned for the door, then paused and looked back. This isn't over. But it was. She just hadn't realized it yet. Rachel didn't call for 2 days. I didn't expect her to. But on the third morning, just as the sun filtered through the blinds and the smell of Samantha's hair still lingered on my pillow, my phone lit up with her name. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Sure. Come by whenever. Samantha wasn't there that morning. She'd left early, her goodbye kiss lingering longer than it needed to, her hand trailing down my back like she wanted to stay but knew better. We weren't rushing into anything, but we weren't pretending anymore either. When Rachel arrived, she was dressed for a war she didn't want to fight, hair pinned, lips pressed tight, clothes immaculate. She stepped inside like she still lived here, like everything hadn't shifted beneath her feet. We sat across from each other in the living room, the same place she dropped her bomb weeks ago, the same place Samantha had kissed me for the first time. Rachel didn't look around, didn't ask about Samantha. She just folded her hands and spoke like someone trying to rewrite history. I think we made a mistake, she said. I raised an eyebrow. We. She winced slightly but recovered. I didn't think it would get this far. I thought we could experiment and still come back to what we had. I nodded slowly, letting her twist. And now? I asked. She hesitated. I think we should close the marriage. Rebuild. Find each other again. I exhaled through my nose and leaned forward. Rachel, that's not going to happen. Her brow furrowed. Why not? Because I'm not going to let you draw new lines just because it's convenient for you. Her eyes hardened. So that's it? One night with her and you're done with us. No, I said. It wasn't one night. It was every night you turned away from me. Every night you chose someone else. Samantha didn't just show up. She stepped into the silence you left behind. Rachel's throat bobbed. I stood. You wanted freedom. Now you have it. But you don't get to cage me again just because you don't like what that freedom looks like. I was scared, she said, her voice cracking slightly. I thought I'd lost your attention. I thought you didn't want me anymore. And instead of telling me, I said, you opened the door to strangers. Her shoulders slumped. Samantha makes me feel wanted, I added. Not just physically. She listens. She cares. She shows up. She looked away, swallowing her pride like a bitter pill. I didn't come here to fight, she said finally. I just needed to know where we stand. I nodded. We stand in different places now. She rose slowly, brushing invisible dust off her skirt. Her voice was quieter this time. Do you love her? I don't know, I said honestly. But I know I don't love you the same way anymore. Rachel didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod, then turned for the door. When it closed behind her, the air didn't feel heavier. It felt clean. I stood there for a long moment before grabbing my phone and texting Samantha. You up? She responded instantly. Always. Want company? Yeah, I wrote. But not just for tonight. Rachel didn't disappear entirely. She texted sometimes, logistical things, mostly. Bank accounts. The lease. The car insurance. But the woman who once left sticky notes in my lunchbox now spoke to me like we were filing a joint tax return. The part that hurt the most? She wasn't even angry anymore. Just hollow. I found out from a mutual friend that she'd ended things with whoever she'd been seeing. Apparently, the guy was younger, cocky, and just as emotionally unavailable as she pretended not to be. It hadn't lasted long after she saw Samantha's earring on the table. Funny how that one little detail broke the illusion. Rachel tried to act indifferent, but I knew better. Jealousy isn't always loud. Sometimes it lingers in pauses. In clip texts. In the way she used to say your girlfriend, like it tasted sour on her tongue. And Samantha was still around. More than around, really. She became my steady presence, the person who'd slide her hand into mine in a crowded coffee shop, who left her toothbrush next to mine without ceremony, who cooked barefoot in my kitchen like it had always been hers. We didn't rush into definitions. It wasn't about vengeance or filling space. It was about peace. One night, maybe 2 weeks after Rachel's last visit, Samantha and I sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, her head resting on my chest as we listened to rain tap against the windows. I think I could love you, she said softly. I didn't answer right away, but I knew I could too. It wasn't just the sex, but that was everything my body had been starving for. It was the warmth, the eye contact, the presence. She was with me, even in silence. We started talking about more. Real things. where we'd want to live if we moved, whether she'd be open to kids, what kind of dog she wanted. She wanted a golden retriever. I wanted a mutt. We agreed on both. One morning, I saw Rachel standing outside the cafe Samantha and I frequented. She hadn't noticed us yet. She was with a friend, laughing, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked smaller somehow, like a balloon 2 days deflated, still technically full, but no longer able to float. She finally saw us through the window. Our eyes met. Samantha's hand was resting casually on my thigh. I didn't move it. Neither did she. Rachel looked away first, and I realized something I hadn't expected. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. I pitied her. Not because she was alone, but because she thought freedom came from breaking rules instead of building new ones. She tore the house down thinking it would liberate her, forgetting the foundation still mattered. I just happened to rebuild mine with someone better. Someone present. Later that night, Samantha wrapped her arms around me in bed and whispered, "Do you think she regrets it?" I didn't hesitate. Yeah, but not because she lost me. Because I didn't fall apart. The last time I saw Rachel, she was across the room at a friend's engagement party. It had been 3 months. The air buzzed with soft music and champagne flutes, the clink of laughter echoing off high ceilings. Samantha was beside me in a deep green dress that made her skin glow. Her hand rested in mine, her thumb drawing lazy circles on my palm like we had nothing to prove, no one to impress. But Rachel noticed. She stood by the open bar in a crimson cocktail dress, her hair pinned, her lipstick immaculate, her smile hollow. She wasn't alone, not technically. A man leaned close beside her, nodding to whatever she was saying. But her eyes kept flicking toward us, unable to look away. Samantha caught it first. "She's staring," she whispered, smirking against my ear. "I know," I said, sipping my drink. "She's trying to figure out when she lost." Samantha turned to me with a warm smile. "And she didn't lose," I said. "She just bet everything on rules that never worked." We didn't go over to her. There was nothing to say. No closure to seek. Rachel had rewritten our marriage like a legal contract she assumed I'd never read closely. She thought freedom meant carelessness, that desire would fix the cracks in our foundation. But she never understood that loyalty isn't a prison. It's a choice, one you make every day. And the second she walked out the door, dressed for someone else, I stopped choosing her. Now, I chose Samantha. And Samantha chose me, not in rebellion, not in pity, but in certainty. Later that night, we left the party hand in hand. The city lights danced off car hoods and store windows as we walked. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. When we got home, I watched Samantha undress slowly, teasingly, her smile knowing. She didn't ask who I was thinking about. She didn't have to. I kissed her like she was the only woman I'd ever known. And for the first time in years, I meant it. Afterward, as we lay tangled in warm sheets, I glanced over at her and asked quietly, "Do you regret it?" She turned to face me. "Regret what?" "Breaking the rules." Her smile was soft, sleepy. "No. I think we just wrote better ones." I nodded, staring at the ceiling for a moment. I don't think I was ever afraid of Rachel being with someone else. I was afraid she'd forget who we were. And did she? She did. I rolled onto my side, brushing a strand of hair from Samantha's cheek. "But you reminded me who I could be." She kissed me, slow and deep. Rachel once told me love was about trust and maturity. She used those words like armor for what she wanted. But what she never understood is that trust isn't built on freedom. It's built on faith, on choosing someone again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She wrote the rules. I just learned how to win by them. And in the end, while she stood alone across a crowded room watching me hold a woman who loved me fully. She realized it, too. She opened the door. I walked through it stronger,